Hello guys, how are we doing? Welcome back to the channel. We are covering a CDL match today, looking at how Ultra managed to drop, or an individual on Ultra managed to drop 49 kills and still lose the map against Thieves. Before we get into the analysis and breakdown of what happened and why it happened, a couple of updates on this format. Obviously, it's a new format. I've not done this many times before. I've literally done it once. This will be the second time I've done it, and I welcome all constructive feedback. So let me know down in the comments if there's something you'd like to see as an additional, or you want me to change the way I do something. Because at the end of the day, this is for you guys. You are the audience, and I'd love to hear some feedback if it's constructive, of course. The second thing is I'm going to be moving the day I do this video to the Monday or Tuesday following the games of the week. And before I do that, I will be putting a post out on YouTube where you guys can comment on what match you want to see, and make sure you thumbs up the comment that you agree with, so that I look at the most liked comment and that's the match we go with, and that's how we're going to be doing it going forward. Doesn't have to be hardpoint. I know the past two, including this one, has been hardpoint. It can be an S&D game that someone does really well at and really good defenses on S&D. It could be a control game where it was an absolute whitewash, a 3-0, and you want to look into that. But yeah, the most favored comment, as long as it's not the same team in the same maps and the same modes over and over again, the most liked comment will be the one we go for on that week. I will also try and highlight the fact that I'm going to be trying to be as unbiased as possible. I'm trying to get a real objective perspective of the matches here. I am a Thieves fan, and I have been since Vanguard, since they were struggling a little bit at the beginning of Vanguard. I've stuck with them throughout. I'm a Thieves fan, but I'm going to try and take myself away from that and be completely objective in today's video, and hopefully you guys can see that I am being completely unbiased. Before we get into the video, we're going to take a quick look at the stats here. You can see, and something else I want to say as well, I'm not going to be looking at every single gunfight and why did they lose that, why did they win that gunfight, because at the end of the day, we'd be here for bloody hours. We're going to be looking at the big things, the gunfights that cost the break of the hill, the gunfights that won the break of the hill, and those gunfights that actually mattered, not every single one, because as I say, we'd be here for hours. So we're going to be kicking off with this leaderboard view. This is what was stood out to a lot of people, that Joey D managed to drop 49 kills, 61 limbs, including assists, for the loss. It was a super tight game. Thieves only managed to win by 8 points, so it could have been either win, okay? But Thieves have done something within the game to pull that dub in, even though one player on the other team were completely outslaying. A lot of the blame, I've seen it on Reddit, I've seen it on X, I've seen it, in the comments when I was watching the live stream myself. A lot of the blame was handed down to Kleenex, who unfortunately dropped 28 to 38, which obviously isn't a good stat line. We're going to be looking at whether or not that was impactful in the loss, obviously when we go through every hill by hill. But something that to bear in mind is that the dude got 21 assists, got 4.2k damage. It wasn't like he wasn't shooting anybody. He was in the action, and on red card hardpoint, he has to use the AR sometimes, and that's a gun he's not going to be as comfortable with as he would normally as the SMG, whereas Joey D has been able to use the SMG throughout this match. I think he was the sole main sub for this map. So he's obviously using the gun he's comfortable with throughout the gameplay, whereas Kleenex, the other sub, has had to pull out an AR because of how red card plays. So there's some things to bear in mind. Before we get into the hill-by-hill analysis, I just want to give you guys, and the breakdown, give you guys of how the game went. Okay, so you can see it started off relatively even. Thieves took a lead, then Ultra held a massive lead throughout almost a whole set of rotation, and then it went higgledy-biggledy all the way up to the end where you can't quite see because my massive head's in the way, but so we'll quickly hide that. You can see here, Ultra end up losing marginally by 8 points. Now, I've broken this data down in a slightly different way to look at what hills were really impactful throughout this journey on this map. If you look at the far right, you can see how much time a certain team got more than the other team. So, for example, the first P1, Ultra managed to get 10 more points than the Thieves did. So that was a really good hold for them. P2, however, it flips its head completely. Thieves managed to get 36 more seconds than Ultra did on that first P2. And as you can see, P4, P3, neither team, they both got 23 seconds on that hill, so neither team was really dominant. However, P4, that's where Ultra really take the lead, and that's where you can see on the graph here, Ultra take that massive jump from 44 to 93, because they get almost 50 seconds on P4 alone, keeping Thieves off it completely. So we're going to be looking at the main ones here, and what causes Ultra to do so well in some hills, and why Thieves managed to do so well in others, and what mistakes maybe Ultra made, and maybe Kleenex made, perhaps, throughout these. And we're going to be looking through it in that sort of detail. We're going to be focused on the things that matter. So let's rewind it all the way back to basics, all the way back to the beginning. Let's see what we got here.
The middle of the road, they can definitely pull something up towards the back end of this series, but those first 3 maps maybe look a little struggle outside the S&D. So really curious to see how it goes down. We could be seeing all 5 miles, to be honest with you. And well, you know, I'm only here once at the moment, so
skip ahead a little bit. Don't necessarily need to be listening to all this. Okay.
Ultra. Here we go, straight into P1. Surprised it's the first time that we've seen these 2 teams mix it up. First time we've seen Scrap going up against his former organisation as well.
So P1 was a relatively mixy hill. I think Ultra ended up coming out with 10 more seconds than Thieves. So I don't think it was necessarily a Thieves dominated hill or an Ultra dominated hill. It was relatively close, as P1s really should be. What's interesting is that Thieves and Ultra, if I take a look at the minimap here, Ultra aren't trying to control a particular spawn. They've got a fairly even push across the map. And the fact that don't have anyone committed to blocking the P2 spawn back here has allowed Dan Ghosty pretty much to spawn in. Whether or not that was their intention or not, I'm not sure. But Dan Ghosty goes, I think he's about to go quite huge here. But let's see how it plays out. So yeah, because essentially this is really good play from Dan here. From Ghost, who I don't know in first name terms, of course. But the fact that Ultra, first of all, spawned Thieves Ghosty here has allowed Ghosty to be really, really difficult, because now Thieves are pinching from both sides, and the fact that Ultra didn't really control that spawner has allowed Ghosty to slip through here, whilst the rest of the teams are still spawning out at the coach. Now, what's interesting about the fact that Ghosty is really trying to play his life here is that P2 is where my cursor is currently, and being able to translate spawns from here to here are far easy to translate spawns here all the way over here. So Ghosty's really playing his life and being really valuable for Thieves, not necessarily for P1, but for P2, where Thieves managed to get 36 more points than Ultra on. So let's see how this plays out. I'm not going to stop it every second, guys, don't worry. Kleenex is doing a really good thing here. I'm just gonna let this play out before I start pausing it all over the place. So if we take a look at the minimap here, Thieves now have got a really good control of this zone of the map, and P2's here. It's going to be a real easy transition, as I've just said, for Thieves to get from here to here. And the score's still close. As I say, the score is 2-7. And there's only 18 seconds left. There's no team really benefiting off this hill much, but Thieves have managed to come out of it, or at least at this point, with the good hill. Now, Kleenex try to clear the gunfight up with Ghosty here. Kleenex has recognised that Ghosty's in a real good position. So if I take this back to this point, Kleenex is the one player from Ultra who's decided to go and wrap round Trophy Room and try and kill Ghosty, because at this, Kleenex understands that Ghosty's going to be blocking the better spawns to translate to P2. So whilst Thieves are making really good plays and winning in really important gunfights towards the hedge, Ghost is just trying to play their life here. And this is a really, really important gunfight where Kleenex nearly gets solid timing on Ghosty. Unfortunately, Ghosty wins it. Unfortunately, Ghosty wins it and then guarantees the spawns for Thieves. So that gunfight there is really important. And you could argue, well, Kleenex should have won that gunfight. Yes, but if it was that important, should he have been the only one to challenge it? I'm not sure. I don't know what the comms are. I don't know what's going through the mind. So obviously, I can't hear the thoughts of the players. That was a crucial gunfight for this P2 success. As I say, whether or not Kleenex should have done it themselves or not is another thing. It was a 1v1. Big win there for Kleenex. Their team spawn in. Ghosty wins it. You can see what happens here. The rest of Thieves spawn in, which, yes, gives Ultra a little bit more hill time on P1, but they've got the better spawn for P2. Now, Harrz is managing to play his life enough in here to be really difficult, and he's got the real technical ability to just be annoying in this area here. But you can see there's not too much emphasis from Thieves to worry about this hill, and you can see because of where they spawned, they're not necessarily holding these spawns. They don't really care about keeping these spawns throughout P2, but they're able to get from this spawn. They're able to get really well positioned at the new objective because they had these good spawns at the end of P1. So you can see they're fighting for this middle control, but because of where Ultra spawning, because of where Thieves are positioned, Thieves are now in a far better position going into P2, like so. So you can see Ultra a little bit spread. Thieves, because of where they were spawning at the P1, were able to transition to P2 with relative ease, and that was all done from that Ghosty gunfight against Kleenex. There was huge. Obviously, there were other gunfights that took place that resulted in this, but that was one key moment, which is worth thinking about.
Towards P2. Yeah, I'm interested really.
Now, Ultra seem pretty spread at this point. You can see if we're looking at the minimap, there's not too much of an entry. You can see what's really interesting is that Joey D is trying to pinch the objective while the rest of his team push from this front side, which is nice. It's quite nice to spread the play, and if they don't reach Joe to Thieves here, he's got the opportunity to be really impactful. But Hydra's just being Hydra right now. He's playing really mixy. He's understanding where Ultra are, and he's just trying to push that objective out. And now this is a real good situation for Thieves. If we take a look at the minimap here, Thieves have got control of stage, which essentially spawns, and they're winning these gunfights. If we rewind this back, Thieves have got control of stage, and they're spawning Ultra all the way out over here, which means they're pretty much trapped. This is a real nice setup to have as a Thieves player, because essentially it just means that Thieves Ultra are going to spawn bottom Eskies or back Calf, and it's essentially going to make them, the only routes they've got from there is either through middle to the hedges or just through the back of the hill. It makes it a really two-dimensional push for Ultra because Thieves have managed to spawn them back here and they've won the important gunfights over here. So who won the important gunfights, I guess, is to say. You can see number 5 and 7 being Beans and Insight, being the AR players, have lost the crucial gunfights over here. I think Hydra gets the first blood on Insight, which is a gun diff thing. If you know, even if they both shot at the same time and reacted the exact same, Hydra's going to have a sub, Insight's going to have an AR, Insight's going to lose that gunfight. Beans eventually trades them, but then Scrap, unfortunately, well, fortunately for Thieves, unfortunate for Ultra, wins that one-on-one gunfight against Beans, allows Hydra to spawn back in, and now now we're back in the situation where Ultra's here. So that one-on-one gunfight between Beans and Scrap was huge for these spawns. And if Beans plays his life there, Beans stays alive and wins that gunfight, it's a little bit of a different story, okay? Because now Ultra have control of stage, Thieves potentially are spawning all the way back over here, and then Thieves are in that sort of a trap. But because they won that gunfight, has allowed Ultra to spawn in back here, and now they're just, they're spawning here, they're running in front, they don't have many options to break the hill. And it basically allows Thieves to only really look in this one direction because of Ultra's limited routes to this new hill. So Thieves have done, again, a really good job at controlling these spawns. And this is a real key. This is a real key hill for Thieves. Thieves on this P2 get 36 more seconds than Ultra do. And it's probably likely down to that.
So far, so good. Scrap finding a couple. Ghosty now soaking away, purring, just like that weapon charm in game, folks. Or is it a sticker? I forget. Spray? Who knows these days? Joe Thieves there trying to find.
So Joe actually does a huge play there. I think whenever a team is set up on an objective, they should be the ones that get the first kill. Joe does a huge job at getting the first blood there. They trade out. So far, it's trade. But unfortunately, the trades are broken because Envoy wasn't traded for Joe Thieves. So that essentially means that a first blood is only really useful if that's then traded and then traded and traded and then traded and then traded. The fact that Beans didn't trade Envoy when Joe Thieves died there has resulted in Thieves being the last man alive, okay? And Thieves being the players that are, if you look at this position, are now still in the better position going into P2 to get this remainder of the scrap time. So that, you could put that one down. You could argue you could put that down to Beans. It's a little bit of a tough gunfight for Beans. Envoy does a really good read. But yeah, that's a gunfight Beans has to win. It's a trade they need to secure. But hey, it is what it is. And essentially that's made it really easy for Thieves to pick up the remaining scrap because now Ultra spawning all the way over here and they have to think about Nu, which is all the way over here. Okay, so now Ultra not only got a fight for 18 seconds of hill time, but they've also got a fight for P3. And what's really interesting about this, for those of you who don't know, when P3 is live in the garage, you want the outside spawns because it's easy to trap. Similar to what was happening over here, it's easy to trap the players spawning in the garage, and that makes it, as I say, similar to what happened here, really easy to hold when the enemies are spawning in garage. So Thieves aren't too concerned about getting to the new objective. But because they've got the good spawns for P2 and the good setup for P3, because you want these outside spawns for P3, it means that Ultra are conflicted in what they should focus on. They don't want to just focus on the hill time because it means they're going to be last to P3, but yet they can't give up the full hill time because it essentially means that Thieves are just going to be given 20 seconds of this scrap. So it's a real tough position for Ultra to be in because Thieves set up properly and they won the important gunfights. So I think Thieves end up getting the most of this rest of this hill, and as you can see, there's a split interest in where Ultra need to be. Are they fighting for Old? Are they fighting for New? But essentially what they've allowed Envoy to do is just soak up the rest of that hill time. And that's why Thieves managed to get 36 more points than Ultra on that specific objective. Now, before we get into P3 itself, I just want to say neither team benefited from this hill. They both got 23 points from this objective, so it's neither here nor there. And that basically comes down to the fact that even though Thieves went 3 down, Joe, I think, does a real nice flank to catch them off. But let's see how this plays out. But this is the ideal setup. This is the ideal setup. I just want to emphasize, for those of you who are ranked play gamers, the ideal setup is as so. You have Ultra spawn, you have your enemy spawning in here, you have someone top middle just watching their push-up Eskies, and essentially they're just trapped in the garage. This is a huge play, because this guy's managed to leak out. I think they may have been the first to die, and they're not quite expecting Joe to be in this position. But this is a good setup. These are trying to play to trap Ultra in the garage. When it then moves to P4, Ultra still spawning here and makes it really easy to defend P4 as well.
Continues to grow.
But you can see that is a bloody big gunfight that Joe won there. Because what then happens, yeah, I'll break it down in a second. But it's a super mixy hill, and it's because neither side managed to control that top spawn, the outside spawn, effectively, really.
Still trying to get in there. Go on, son. Time for Ultra now on the way out. No way. Envoy picks those nearly 3 up. Rotation's done. Nice flip towards the very end there for the Thieves. You've got a little bit of a battle now to get out, but still ample time.
Okay.
Very healthy.
That's actually not bad. Ultra have actually done really well on this hill. Considering, if we rewind this back, I'm going to focus now on the mini-map here. Considering Ultra was spawning here, this Joe Deceives play is huge. Is absolutely huge. As he kills player number 4, Ghosty, and Envoy loses that gunfight, because Ultra have completely released this garage spawn, look where Thieves now spawn. They now spawn in the trap. And although Envoy, is it Envoy? I can't remember who's on the hill. Although they do a decent job at, and this player spawns out because one of these players would have been too close to the garage spawn, so they've spawned out. But because of how quickly how Joe got that gunfight win, and how quickly they then release the spawn, it's allowed this to be really mixy. And they've just been able to push their way in through the front. Again, they've released this hill, they've released this back spawn, so now the team is spawning there. I think Envoy gets good timing on a block. But in any case, a really good read from Insight. The fact that player number 8, Kleenex, spawned here has enabled Insight to know that someone's pinching, because otherwise Kleenex would have spawned all the way out where pretty much Envoy's just died. So that's a really big kill from Insight there. So they've done a real good job at getting out. And it all starts from that Joe Deceives push. Okay, that's a really good kill. But yeah, they have to give up scrap. They have to think about new rotation, which means they alleviate pressure from the objective at the end of this P3, and then Thieves pretty much get the scrap. So Thieves start with a hill, they get broken, and then they end up with a hill. But again, even though it could have been much worse. If Ultra hadn't have managed to push out there, Thieves probably would have come away with a lot of that hill time. But the fact that Joe managed to leak around the gap and he wasn't red, and he won that gunfight in tickets, essentially allowed Thieves to then spawn in the trap. Ultra then held them off for a good amount of time. But obviously then they have to transition to P4, as you can see here. So they alleviate the pressure from P3, allowing Thieves to pick up the scrap time. But it could have been a lot worse. So really good setup there for Thieves. But again, it could have been easier for Ultra. If Ultra have managed to have the outside spawns from the offset of P3, we're looking at a different situation. Ultra probably could have had more time if they'd have focused on this outside zone rather than what they go. But in any case, 0 seconds won, or an advantage from either team. Let's see what the story is at P4. Now, but this is a really good P4 for Ultra, by the way. Really good P4 for Ultra. They get 49 more seconds than Thieves do here. And let's see how they do it. So again, good kills from Joey D, who actually has pulled out the AR, which I think is important for this hill. And they're getting the gunfights. Yeah, you get no aim assist on this hedge, so this is always just a sticky gunfight.
just eventually take that one away. Big kill for Thieves to find. They can maybe put the
But again, Ultra just soaking this time. The team on Thieves are just Ultra just getting the good kills. They're getting big kills. I think there's 4 ARs on this hill. But you can see Thieves haven't touched this hill time, unless apart from contesting it, and it's essentially allowed Ultra to just get all of that hill time. And the reason for that, they had the good spawns at the beginning of P4. If we rewind this back, maybe to here, that's way too late. Apologies. You can see they've given up 10 seconds of scrap time, and they've decided to just set up at new. And the fact that they've decided to set up at new has allowed them to get in really good positions to get the first kills. And getting the first kills means you've then playing off the trades. You end up with a hill time. You can set up the crosses. You know, they get a good kill here. You've still got Beans playing a little bit lurking, being annoying in this zone. But you've got Insight and Kleenex sort of defending the hill itself. But because they rotated first and they managed to get a really good setup on the objective, they're able just to hold them off. And because the lines of sight to this hill are so long, you can pretty much spawn in and cut the map to the objective straight away. So the fact that they've been able to set up properly and rotate to the hill first has essentially enabled them to get 49 seconds of score here that Thieves weren't able to do. And it all starts from this setup. There's gunfights that lost, gunfights won, but it's all down to pretty much rotating early. Okay, that's pretty much what it was down to. Thieves didn't have the spawns. They didn't manage to contest the time. I think what they probably could have done better here is just contest the time and been really difficult. And especially in this situation here, if we take a look at how long's left, 40 seconds, Thieves have got a decent amount of map control. The only player that's standing off it is Beans. You've got Insight on hill time. If these players just focus this and just try and contest the objective here, we're in for a good situation. They could potentially wallbang. They need to really be focusing on Insight here to break this objective. And Thieves could have come away a lot better there if they'd have done that. Instead, they're playing around the hill. Scrap loses a gunfight to Beans. I don't think Scrap was even looking at Beans for that situation. And because player number 4 in Ghosty is playing on top of the objective rather than underneath, he's then really open to these players shooting them. If Ghosty would have gone under and challenged Insight one-on-one down in that little underneath bit, he'd have probably stood a better chance. But I think they get picked off because he's simply outnumbered here, and then they're spawning in. So again, real good setup. Thieves probably could have done something about it, but it all comes down to Ultra rotating early. Let's get back to P5 where we left off. Now the next few hills, I'm just going to let run a little bit. Neither team win much more hill time than others. But we're not going to be focusing on too much without these next few hills. Thieves obviously managed to rotate earlier because Ultra had control of the last objective, but what they're failing to do is really narrow down where the players are. They don't account for the fact that Insight's going to be in here. Insight managed to get a really free kill and now has the better spawn. So the fact that Insight played his life there is really, really huge because it allows Kleenex to spawn in. Now Thieves are getting pinched from both sides. That gunfight needed to be won by Hydra. So yeah, Insight's done a really, really good job there. But because the spawns were split, now the spawns remain to be split. It's really hard once the spawns start to be split. It's really hard for them to just magnetize to one side from that point onwards. But it's super mixy. You can see here how mixy this hill is. It's a super open hill as well. Insight's playing absolutely huge. Hydra managed to leak through. Fortunately, no aim assist just allows Ultra to hop on that objective. So, yeah, really good play out of Insight, actually, that hill. That hill was huge for him. But in any case, I think in total, Thieves come out with 4 more points than Ultra did on that hill. So it's neither here nor there. And I think this P1 as well, 3 points go in the way of Ultra, of Thieves net. So this is huge. The fact that Thieves managed to get pretty much 4 down, it's 2 then 2, and they don't get most of this hill time, it's astounding. So Ultra have to do something really important here to manage to break this. And again, it's the fact that Thieves aren't necessarily blocking a particular spawn, and it allows Ultra to spawn in. It baffles me. I think on this objective, you really need someone dedicated to just seeing Beans sat back red, and that'll essentially always spawn Ultra back here. The fact that Thieves have, let me zoom in a bit, the fact that Thieves have nobody this half of the map has essentially allowed Ultra to spawn in. So the fact that Thieves have got all this hill control, they managed to get 4 kills down, is almost irrelevant because they're not set up for one direction, okay? They're not necessarily sure where players are spawning. And if we play this out, you can see they're looking for kills. They're not sure that They didn't realize Kleenex was still that side. They're not really sure what's happening because they didn't have anyone devoted to blocking a certain spawn. So they're now looking at both sides and they don't really know what to do from there. So I don't necessarily think that's a benefit of that's a thing to credit Ultra for. I think that's a weakness in Thieves on that hill specifically. They've just not had somebody block, and as a result, Ultra have spawned in front of them and behind them, which isn't really forgivable, especially considering you get 4 down and you get set up. But both teams are doing a good job at keeping this mixy. I think Thieves had a good start on the hill. Ultra managed to get a decent finish on it. Now, what's a little bit different from the first time going into P2 is you've got Joe Deceives playing on the hill already. If we look at the first P2, I'm not going to go back to it, it's going to take me ages to find this point, but going back to the first P2, Ultra were nowhere near this objective, whereas you've got Kleenex, so Joe Deceives and Kleenex both around the objective. Pretty much it's a 2v2 situation around this sort of area here. You've got the other 2 players from each team sort of not really near the hill, and although Thieves have the better spawn for P2, they may be aggressed to P2 a little bit too late. At this point, there's 9 seconds left of the objective. Player number 4 in Ghosty tries to contest P1. There's not much of an emphasis. Yeah, it's a really good rotation from Ultra here. Just getting, although Thieves have the better spawn, Ultra have rotated themselves, which is a huge difference from the first time. And again, this is a mixy hill. I think Ultra come out with 2 points more than Thieves from this. So yeah, this is a really, really good play from these 2 players. So from Hydra and Envoy, this pinch is massive. You can see, although they were spawned here, they've taken the time to flank round, try and get these spawns. And you can see how important these spawns must be for P2. And the fact they've flanked round is essentially why this has been broken. So they won the really important gunfights against these 2 players. I think they killed Beans in a 2 versus 1. And what Thieves are really good at doing, non-biased, I'm trying to be non-biased, is isolating one player when there's more than one of them. So they've just taken a 2 versus 1 gunfight on Beans. Beans has lost that. You can see how close together they are. That was a 1v1 situation. I think that was a Envoy versus Kleenex. So 2 subs using ARs, shooting at each other. Envoy comes out on top. Kleenex probably should have won that gunfight, but again, it's the gun he's not necessarily comfortable with. And now we're in a situation where it's a 2 versus 2 pincer attack on the 2 players in the hill. So although Ultra managed to get to this hill nice and early, and they managed to set up relatively well and spawn spawn Thieves initially in the bad spawn, you could argue. The fact that Thieves managed to get out, leak out, and get the gunfights has enabled them to make this hill at least somewhat scrappy. They're keeping this mixy, and because of, I'll just explain something quickly, because of Bean's position, Scrap's now spawned in the bad spawn. But this gunfight is huge. This player here, Ghosty, needs to really play their life to maintain these spawns, otherwise they're going to struggle going into P3. So this is good. This is good from both teams. I've got to be honest. This is really good from both teams. I think Ultra have allowed them to spawn in and therefore put a little bit more emphasis on P3, which has allowed Thieves to get a lot of scrap time here. But in any case, a good hill from both teams. Really, there was probably mistakes made a little bit. Maybe Ultra could have put a little bit more effort in keeping that hill. But now this is another scrappy hill. This is a hill where Ultra come out with 4 more points than Thieves. So again, I think it's 13 points Thieves get and Ultra get 17 from this. And it's because of this. Going into the hill, it's super scrappy. There's players everywhere. There's no formality. There's no structure. In order for a team to be beneficial in this hill, they need to be the ones that own this back spawn. And I think Thieves think they've got this mid-map control and are now putting the emphasis on the hill. They don't realize that Joe Deceives is still coming off old. They don't understand that. I don't think, they don't read that spawn here from Joe Deceives. I don't think he doesn't even shoot. So they're not aware of this player here. Should they be? Maybe. You could argue they should be because they can't see Joe Deceives. Their next gunfights aren't going to be Joe Deceives. Where was he? He's probably got to be back spawn. They should know the spawn timings. And the fact that Joe spawned there should be obvious to the pros, at least. But the fact that Joe's managed to leak through, you've then got Insight, who got a really good timing up Eskies. Player Scrap didn't manage to see them, has allowed Thieves to be pinched. Now, if Insight just hit the front of the hill here, he doesn't get through. And if Thieves read the Joe spawn, then Joe's likely to be dead, or they could have the opportunity to kill Joe. But the fact that they don't read Insight pushing through, nor do they read Joe pinching behind, even though Thieves have got the spawns, has kept this really, really scrappy. So again, I don't think this is necessarily a good thing for Ultra. I think this is a fact that Thieves just didn't understand what was happening, and they didn't pick up the defense quick enough. They didn't rotate and set up quick enough. But hey, it is what it is. And now you're in a situation where Thieves are in the bad spawn. Joe Thieves continues to get the really, really important kills, along with Kleenex, who's now got a sub out at this hill. Beans also seems to have a sub out at this objective as well, which is interesting to see. But again, it's all about flooding out that middle. You can see both teams really want to prioritize the control outside the hill, and then they can get to the hill. So although, you know, Ultra had a good start, Thieves managed to break through the middle. Both teams could have done with a little bit more setup time, maybe. Now, this next objective goes in the way of Thieves. Those Thieves get 26 more points than Ultra do on this. The last P4, Ultra got 49 more points than Thieves. And again, what's the pattern here? And the pattern simply is Thieves rotated earlier. Ultra rotated earlier before and ended up with more. Thieves rotated earlier here, ended up with more. And spoiler alert, P4 is the last hill on this match, and Thieves rotate to it first. Okay? And this is a real easy hill to defend. As I said, there's long lines of sights to get anywhere to the objective, so you're able to cut the map quite easy from whenever you spawn. So it's just a simple hill to get a good amount of time off, as long as the team defending spread out enough. So now, based on where Ghost is positioned and where Harrz just spawned in, you know exactly where the Ultra are going to be coming from. Really good kill from Insight. Unfortunately, was traded. And now you're at the point where Harrz killing you at that range. He's got a sub. He knows the wallbang spots. We're chilling. And because of how deep, you can see on the minimap, just because of how deep Ghosty is playing, he's controlling the spawns so effectively that he knows that based on his positioning, Ultra are going to be spawning in front. And it allows Thieves to just set up really, really well on this objective. And that's why, not only because they've rotated there first, they won the initial gunfights, they won the important gunfights, and they managed to just get most of that hill time. This next P5 is, again, quite scrappy. It normally is, but Ultra do come out. I think Thieves get 11 points on this. Ultra get 23. So Ultra have a slightly better formation going into this objective. Again, they rotated there first. They get most of the objective. They get the first kill. Yeah. So again, the fact that Insight is sat so deep tells the whole of Ultra, any kills they get, they're going to spawn Garage. So with Insight here, any kills Ultra get, Thieves are going to spawn Garage. And that's what you really want to play for. This is the better side to have, because when the enemies are spawning Garage, they're forced to either take a long route up Eskies or just flood into the funnel of gunfire, this L, which is just awful. So Insight, again, is a really, really good play on this P5. Now, unfortunately, his defensiveness has allowed Thieves to get onto the hill, which has made it a little bit difficult for Ultra. But all it takes is Joe Thieves to take a nice little flank, get all the way through, pinch, and clean up the mess. Managed to get a 3-piece. Now all of Thieves are spawning in the garage, and this is why Ultra managed to get it. Okay, it does actually come down to the fact that Insight has stayed in that spawn. Insight has made sure that the whole of his team know where Thieves are going to be spawning. Nice flank from Joe Thieves, who is the only sub on this team at this point. Because Kleenex would have been using it as an AR, I believe, for P5. And then we go into P2, P1. Now, P1, so that's solid hill from Ultra. And that's due basically because they had the better spawns and they didn't really read Joe Thieves' flank. So that's a super good play from him. Going into the next hill, P1, Thieves get the most of the hill time out of this one. They get 24 more seconds than Ultra do on this hill, which is surprising considering if you look at the minimap right now, who would you think would get most of this hill time based on this position? You'd probably assume Ultra. They're close to it. They've got good map control. Number 7's blocking the good spawn. This gunfight between Envoy and Insight is massive. Let's see how this plays out. he gets that kill, which is fine. This is good. This is good for P2, which is where Ultra do manage to get good hill time from. But they need to keep P1 really mixy and make sure that Thieves don't get much time on this hill. Thieves are winning the gunfights at this point. P1 comes down to winning or not winning gunfights. Again, Ultra a little bit torn here. Ultra thinking, right, do we just set up for P2 or do we just fight for the scrap time? It's a close game. That decision making is going to affect how they're playing in their heads. And they've done a good job here, to be fair. They've got the good kills. There's three Ultra team alive. There's only Hydra alive on Thieves, and they're going to understand that. Based on their position, they know which side Thieves are going to spawn. This is a really good start of P2 for Ultra. They've got the good spawn for P2. They know Thieves are going to be spawning back here. You know the story, guys. We've been through this before, but the other way around. And as a result, Ultra get 23 more seconds than Thieves do. Now, 4 down, what happens for them to get broken? Because they don't get all of this hill time. They know where they're spawning because of where they're positioned. That's a big gunfight. It was a trade. That's fine. So again, if we take that back a second, this is, again, something that Thieves are really good at. Non-bias, of course. Not only do they have... They understand that getting this hedge control is really important. Not only do they have Envoy taking on this gunfight, Ghost is close behind. So Envoy Green's a little bit weak. Ghosty picks up the trade, and now all of a sudden this whole mid zone is open. Now Ghosty's available to pinch, whilst the rest of the team managed to just push from the front. And again, that's only because Thieves played really tight coming out of their spawn and managed to get that first kill on Beans. That's why they've managed to make this a little bit mill mixy. Again, Beans is playing a little bit of an off angle because they want to keep the good spawns. They want to make it so that Thieves continually spawn back there. And you can see how effective it is when that happens. Ultra are now really benefiting from this. So the last two P3s have been neither here nor there, with teams getting the most of the time, and this is the exact same. P3, I think Thieves come out with 1 second more than Ultra do.
And it's not a problem whatsoever. Here comes Joe. Ian clears now through the stairwell. Kill number 1. Listen.
And this is really good. The fact that Ultra are managing to get the kills when they're spawning in the worst spawn possible essentially flips this on its head. This starts... yeah, they just needed to exit garage a little bit quicker there. That's the issue we've got here. So the fact that we zoom in, you've got player number 6 who's plays quite deep into garage. Who's that? That's Joe Deceives, actually. Joe Deceives playing quite deep into the garage. You need to be literally on the hill or this side of the hill to open up this spawn. Because Joe is a little bit delayed in being, and it's not about necessarily being in the garage. He's in the stairwell, but he's this left side of the stairwell. Essentially, that spawns Thieves out. And this is the better spawn for Thieves. So although they managed to get a good amount of kills, they haven't got Thieves in the trap they want to because Joe was slightly blocking that, which is a forgivable error, I think. And as a result, this keeps it really mixy because Thieves haven't spawned in the back. Thieves are able to get... This is a good position for Thieves to be in, and they can just break it from this side, which is the definite preferred side to be breaking. So they get most of the hill time because they're there first and they're set up, but they could have got way more hill time if they allowed Thieves to spawn in the garage. That is a mistake they have made on this hill, without a doubt. They control the spawn effectively here and spawn Thieves garage from the start. It's GG, and they win this. So they really need to be careful when they're playing around the hill. They really need to guarantee they've got no one this left-hand side of this objective, because otherwise the Thieves are going to spawn out, and that's exactly what happened. Joe Deceives was pulled back a little bit. I think there was another player coach, but that player here who was sort of pulled back on the minimap a little bit too far left essentially spawned Thieves out, and that's what you need to avoid doing at all costs if you want that garage spawn to be employed by the enemy. So that's essentially made this hill non-existent for either team. Now this is important. This is important. It's a super close game. Either team can win it at the moment. And the last two P4s have been the person that's come out with the most hill time on the last two P4s have been whoever's rotated there first. But we've got an interesting predicament now where it's a 3 versus 2. Because of the kills Thieves managed to get towards the latter half of that P3, and they've obviously released the garage spawn completely. Number 1 isn't quite blocking. I think number 1 must have spawned in afterwards, actually. Yeah, number 6 and then number 1 spawns in because he can't spawn here because of these players. So the fact that these players have pushed out of this hill, have left this open, have meant it's a 3v2 on these 2 players here. And I believe Beans probably loses the first gunfight if we zoom out. I think Beans loses the first gunfight and then leaves Kleenex underneath. He probably does have a sub at this point. But this is why it gets broken. I think we're going to watch the minimap here specifically. Yes, Beans gets the first kill, but because he's dealing with a 2 versus 3, it still leaves Thieves in a really good position to trade, which is exactly what happens. So trade. Thieves had more members of their team around the objective at the time than Ultra did. Thieves managed to get on the hill. And now we're looking at a situation where, because Thieves are spawned in, and as I say, this hill is so easy to control when you're on it, because the Thieves are spawned in, they can just make sure Ultra can't get to it. That's essentially what happens here.
There's the break with only 15 seconds to play for here for the side is Thieves. You are not far away, but one break from Ultra will win them the game. Right now,
and that's game pretty much, guys. I don't want to, for those of you who haven't seen, I apologize, but that's game. Again, Ghosty picks up a real nice line of sight where you can see across the whole map, and that's that. So let's break down exactly why that happened. Why was there an outnumbering at the beginning of that P4? Let's take it back all the way to the end of P3, and we're going to be looking at the minimap. So this is really good. There's currently 12 seconds left on P3, and Thieves can't win it. Thieves are on it, if I take zoom out quickly. 12 seconds left of P3. They're on 228. At most, they join. They get even going into P4. Now, what happens is Joe loses a really, really, really important gunfight here. With 12 seconds left, or 10 seconds left to the hill. Thieves are just sprinting through the objective because they want to get to the P4. And because Joe died with so little time left to go, he spawned in. If Thieves lose this gunfight, hang on, watch this. I'm going to zoom out again, sorry, so we can see it. So Joe Deceives is here. Joe needs to win that. The fact that Joe dies first, I think Bean spawns out because of where Harrz's positioned. But the fact if Joe wins that gunfight against Envoy spawns in the back, and Joe spawns here. This one-on-one gun. I know there's been so many things happening from the beginning of the game till now. Joe wins that gunfight, they probably win, and that's the unfortunately the hard truth, because you can see Bean spawns in because unfortunately Harrz's still blocking. Harrz releases the block. You can see he pushes into the hill. Joe Deceives, number 6, then spawns in, and this is why it's outnumbering. Thieves are just spawning here, and the fact that P3 is still live. Scrap spawns in here because these players are blocking the outer spawn and Joe's blocking the garage spawn. It all comes from the fact that Joe lost that initial gunfight near the window. He needed to get one kill. He didn't need to necessarily kill a particular player. He just needed to kill a Thieves player. It could have been anyone in that position, and the Thieves player would have spawned here. And the likelihood is Joe perhaps maybe would have spawned behind them or middle. Probably middle, to be honest. And it would have meant that defending P3, P4 here is a ton of a lot easier. So that actually does it for me for today's video. Sorry, it's a long one. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you have any questions on particular spawns or stuff you'll see. I'm going to turn this down slightly. I'm actually going to spawn it down here. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know if you want any feedback, if you have any feedback. And of course, be ready for my post Sunday night or Monday-ish morning, depending on where you are, for what game you want me to cover next. That'll do for me. Enjoy the rest of the day. I'll see you in the next one. Ciao for now.